Welcome back, everybody, to the Meeple Marathon. Today I'm going to be giving you my full and honest review of Tiny Epic Tactics. This came out in 2019. It is not the newest Tiny Epic Games, but it is the newest Tiny Epic Games in my lineup. One that I had been avoiding for a little bit, but was given the opportunity, or not given, but came across a relatively inexpensive copy and decided to give it a try. So, as per the usual for my reviews, I'm going to be talking about the things that I don't like about the game, the things that I have mixed feelings about, and what I do like about the game. And this video is also going to include some bonus content of some additional ways you can play this game solo. So, I just want to preemptive this review with the fact that so far I've only played it solo. I've played it numerous times now solo, and I've also kind of fiddled with it a lot solo, but I have not had the chance to play multiplayer. So take this review with a grain of salt if you are considering purchasing it for multiplayer. If you are considering purchasing this game purely for solo play or primarily for solo play like myself, then this is the review for you. So first of all, the things that I don't like, and I touched on this in my unboxing video, and this is actually a really big negative for me, but you can easily get around it. The map expansion. Was not a fan at all. No, I normally don't write things off that quickly, but the way they have this set up where it's like, you know, a sleeve for these other little boxes here, and they don't want them to be loose on there, so they kind of have to be tight. But they're also not they're not the same thickness as this. I almost would have rather had like another expansion the same size as the main box with the actual boxes inside. Just give me one, give me ice or desert, one or the other. But not this whole sleeving thing. I feel like if I were to use these, they're eventually just going to tear. It was very fiddly. Some of them did not fit on there tight, and so they're like popping out, which means that you can't put, you know, a few of these things didn't sit well right next to each other. You know, they like took over the additional spaces. It just kind of a hard pass, in my opinion. So unless you are really, really into this game and really are looking for some variety in the way the maps look, then this seemed way more fiddly than it was worth. Next thing that I was not a big fan of was now first of all, I'd like to preempt my statement by saying I really enjoy the fact that you simply walk through a door and then you flip these over and there's your dungeon, especially these bigger ones. You know, gives you a little bit more to do. I think that's a really neat way to make use of the materials you already had, to make use of 100% of your materials. There's no wasted space in this box, none whatsoever. I really appreciate that. But the dungeons already, for me, are getting repetitive. I know, for example, that I want to send my mage into this one because the fastest route can take me past this little blue marker here, which my mage can pass by for free, no one else can. Everyone else that goes through there is going to have to encounter monsters or additional traps, things like that. And so all of my games recently have started with me putting the mage in that corner and running her up into that spot before anybody else gets on top of that land. And so I don't really know how, you know, it could have done it, but I have seen some people discussing this on BGG, and there are people out there trying to come up with a solution. Granted, it'll be a homemade solution. It won't be official, but just a way to mix up what's in the dungeon, what you're going to encounter in the dungeons, seems to be necessary for this game to have any viable replayability. And the last thing is, and this is, I don't know if it's being nitpicky, maybe it's just my play style or maybe it's just my bad luck, but in the solo mode, you have to enter these dungeons, and this final, the big one, the biggest part of the box, which is technically the bottom of the box, the bottom part of the box when you're storing it away, has to be entered last. and you have to have retrieved all the other gems, and all this makes sense. I'm not complaining about this, but this whole aspect of having to cleared off everybody on top, which I get, because it would be a pain to remember where they are and where you're going to put them, because they're, while you're in this dungeon taking time, they still need to be fighting, because you could run out of time, or you could lose everybody else. I kind of get that, but at the same token, it's not like thematically you're walking into this portal and the whole world is being flipped upside down. But with that being said, I have found it to be incredibly obnoxious to get to the end game of this game, with there only being 3 spawn points, that every time you kill an enemy AI, they're going to immediately respawn. Fine. Because it's a little too easy to kill them. If they didn't respawn, it would be too easy. But the fact that they could, if you have a 1 in 3rd chance of continuously pulling, which this has happened to me, that purple flag, and you kill someone off, you've gotten them off the top, or you've killed them off, you're ready to dive in there, and then you immediately have to spawn them right back there, simply because it's just a random draw of the flag color, and there's only 3. So it becomes this obnoxious, repetitive cycle, where literally you're just trying to survive long enough to get the people off the top there. And my strategy basically has become, go run and stand in the corner and make them come towards you, and then once everybody's off the top, send one person running past. That literally seems to be like the best strategy in my opinion. And it's just kind of obnoxious. It's an obnoxious way to close out the game. I have quit several games just because I'm like, I'm done with this. I keep killing people, so I keep gaining 2 time every time, but then I keep respawning them back up on the purple track, and it's just not worth it. And very rarely do I just quit a game because I'm bored. So those were my negatives. Those are some pretty hefty negatives. It certainly wasn't like some of my previous games where I had to like really search for some negative things to say. But let's move on to some mixed stuff. And first of all, I want to talk about the components. And I'm going to kind of lean towards the positive side. Again, I've already spoken about this. I really like the way they utilize these boxes. I really like that they've created some 3D terrain, but it's not overly complicated. It's very simple. The graphics on them are beautifully well done. This little guy is the only one that doesn't sit flat. Kind of sits a little cattywampus, but even then, the meeple still sits, no matter which side you put him on, still sits there correctly. It doesn't fall off. And they don't, like, if you shake the table a little bit, they don't fall over. So I just really like the 3D aspect of this terrain. The meeples are really nice because they've got, this minimalist screen printing on them. The production quality is standard Gamelyn Games production quality, which is very good. The card stock is nice. The only thing that I just am kind of at a loss at is the mat. This and I'll show you guys, because in a minute here I'm going to move to an overhead view. But the mat, the graphics aren't nearly as nice as they are on the 3D terrain. And so it really just like the cities, like this city right here is just really nice. It's really well done. The graphics are amazing. The city on this map is just, I feel like it's a difference between looking at something in HD and in standard definition. I feel like I'm looking at an old tube TV when looking at this map, but also it does not lay flat. And the way you got to store it back in the box, it's almost as if they needed to have made it like 1 cubic inches worth less width, so that you could have rolled it up and fit it into, I'm actually using this box to stand into this one. I feel like they should have made this be the holder for the map, but they didn't, because it just doesn't quite fit in there. So anyways, I feel like that was kind of a miss on their part. For the most part, everything in this game, component-wise, is amazing, except for the cloth mat. All right. The other thing I want to talk about that's kind of mixed is this is called Tiny Epic Tactics. And admittedly, it is a tactical game. It's not a dungeon crawler. You kind of have to make your decisions of when to retreat, when to go. Do you, is it better to run up and smack them because then you're going to be adjacent, or do you hit them from a distance? And, there is tactics involved. I just feel like at the end of the day, it's really all just about running into those flag points and just bashing on each other, and almost feels like playing a game back when I was playing more video games, playing Call of Duty, and you would be killed. You would just literally respawn, and you would literally just take off running to where the massive group of people were, and you'd run and try and kill a few people before inevitably you were shot down. So I like the fact that they have created this game about tactics. Final Fantasy Tactics was a great video game because it was different. It wasn't like a dungeon crawler. It wasn't, you had your time to think about it. It was almost like turn-based, the turn-based action versus the real-time action. But I feel like the tactics really they live up to the size of the box in this situation. Normally, I feel like Tiny Epic Games really blow you out of the water with their content. This one, I feel like, okay, it's a small box tactics game. I'm getting a small box worth of tactics out of it, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's move on to what I do like about this game. And I want to talk about two things, and then I'm actually going to move the camera back overhead here and prove to you why I think this game is unique and has so much potential. So those are the two things. It's unique and it has potential. This is the only game I own where there's like this 3D terrain. I know that some other companies are looking into this. I know like Fantasy Flight with their new Descent is going to be adding in like levels of terrain and things like that. And I'm sure this is not the only game out there, but this is a very accessible game, and it's very well done. It's very easy to implement, and it's very unique in my collection. So if nothing else, this one will probably stay in my collection simply because it fits a very specific niche that I don't really have anything else that might be like it, plus its pure size on the shelf. I never feel like, ooh, I need to get rid of that giant box so I can make room for my giant Kickstarter coming. The other one is potential. Now, I feel like they could have tightened things up just a little bit in a lot of areas, especially the solo. But I feel like with this modular terrain, with this mat that's double-sided and can be rolled out, and how you can move this terrain around, and it all just kind of works in regards to using the terrain and moving up and down on the terrain and things like that, and having elevation and the peaks and the cities, and everything about this system has so much potential. I just feel like they, as designers, did not maximize the potential of this game. So I'm very interested to see if people bother to take this game places with fan-made content. And so let me just show you why I feel like this game has so much potential by showing you just a few of the things of ways that I have played alternates to the basic solo rules, and that they have worked. At least I've had an enjoyable time playing these ways and just kind of spitballing around and being like, oh, if it doesn't work, then I'll just not play it or change it next time. So let's take a look at what I've done here. Okay, so let's just say, for instance, you are tired of playing through the solo mode, the dungeon delving. You've memorized what all the dungeons stand for. You've got like the perfect route to take, and you're just looking for a different challenge. And you're wanting to practice your, tactics for the standard mode, the kind of capture the flag mode. Well, you can play that way, and instead of playing where each person just gets a full activation as far as the enemy AI is concerned, what I started to do was use these solo cards simply for the identifying who is going to go. So in this example, I would say, okay, the rogue is going to activate. I would activate the rogue, but I would activate them like I would. They can either attack or move. They can do a single action. If they are within range of someone, they will attack. If not, they will move towards the closest person. And then they would go again. Well, it's the rogue again. So in this instance, the AI is choosing to, and I'm not even playing with the correct rogue, is choosing to then activate the rogue a second time. Hopefully they are within range. And so in this instance, the enemy would become weakened and then would have to take, and then the next time around, if they want to counter, they'd have to take the 2 damage, or the next time around, even if they are in range to attack, they can only move. Pretty simple. And then you would just go a third time, and it's the beast. The way these are set up is there's only 9 cards here. And that seems to work out well because there's essentially 2 of everybody. And so you're never going to get someone 3 times in a row. It's just not possible. So what I was doing to also kind of mix things up is taking, where is it? This card here that actually does not have a person. This card represents my shuffle the deck back up again. So say, for example, I was doing something like this. And on one turn, I'd go, okay, fighter, then wizard, then beast. Those 3 people activate. Then I take my turn. Then I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to say wizard, fighter, and then we flip over this one. I pick up all the cards, interrupt everything I'm doing, shuffle them up, and then I activate that 3rd person, rogue. So the next time, that 1 card's still just sitting out. So now we're doing wizard, fighter, beast, whole nother turn goes around, fighter, rogue, beast, whole nother turn goes around. At some point here, all right, first card comes out is the shuffle card. I pick them all back up. All you have to do is remember, oh, I haven't really taken any actions for the AI. You shuffle these up, beast, beast. So again, the beast at this point would become weakened, fighter. Because there's only 2 of every card in here, you're never going to have to come into the situation where, oh, they're already weakened. They've already taken 2 actions. Do they get a 3rd? No, that's not going to be a problem. And, essentially what you do is continue playing with the standard rules where you're looking for at the beginning of a turn, so at the beginning of the AI's turn, do they have domination in the area, including being on this track, and then you push it forward. There might need to be some adjustment as to say, all right, do they need to be standing on this trigger point or not? But technically you could trigger the trigger point and then they could come and take over the area from you. Either way, in the games that I played, I found that the majority of the time I was winning. So there could be some tweaking to, difficulty level and things like that. But I found that generally 1 point, whatever it may be, is pretty easy for you to get. You take out the guys in the area and then you can take that 1 point out. And then the middle area kind of can be contentious, but then that last area is a big fight because everybody's basically continuously converging on that area. And it's hard to have, domination at the beginning of your turn in order to advance. So it was a nice little challenge. Also, I, was starting, say, I start on one corner like this, and they start over, say this is how you start, then they would start on the opposite corners. And then I'll converge in towards the middle. Also, when when the AI, when I killed them, they would simply respawn into one of the corners. And what I was doing was saying, all right, the fighter's always going to go here. The beast is always going to go up here in this corner. The rogue's always going to come down here. And the mage is always going to come down here. Kept it pretty simple. That made it a benefit for me for taking them out, because then it usually would take them a turn or 2 to get back into the action. Since taking them out, I'm not gaining any benefit of time. I didn't play with the time track. There was no timing in the rounds. I simply played to either I was completely defeated or somebody took control of all the flags. The other thing that I found successful to do. And again, the reason I'm showing you all this is just to simply point out that this game has a lot of potential, even in the solo capacity. So there's this side, which you can add the 3D terrain to if you want. But I actually played a little game of King of the Hill, I guess you could call it. I think I set it up like this. I did the counting to ensure that everybody was equal distant away from this flag. So like if there's one person that could get there in 9 spaces, I made sure one of these guys could get there in 9 spaces. If this person takes 10, I made sure that there was another person that could make it there in 10. So everybody had an equal chance to rush this flag in the center. Then simply, if you were standing on the flag at the beginning of the round, you got to advance your flag. So I would say, all right, this solo AI is gray and I'm going to be purple. So that would force me to come up here, knock them off, possibly take control. But again, I'd have to hold this position through their turn. So if they knocked me out and nobody was on it, nobody advances. But if I'm on it at the beginning of my turn, I advance it. And this was actually kind of interesting because in these games, a lot of times the solo AI was jumping the lead on me. And if I didn't get a good knockback and get them off of there, you know, they were scoring points. And usually I would have to kind of take care of everyone, pushing them back, making them respawn over here, giving myself time to kind of dominate out and spread myself around to protect this area, then squat on it. And then I took like 3 in a row. But again, this is just a different way to play. It's not hard to implement those rules. And I was activating my people exactly the same as I did formerly, where everybody would get a single action and people could go twice in a row. They would just be weakened. And if they were weakened and the activation came up again, they could only move. Or if you countered them, they'd have to take 2 damage to counter back. I did change up the priorities of how they activated. I said, okay, if they are, say the beast activates, if he can make it, his first priority is to walk onto the King of the Hill spot, if he can. So he would take a move action. If he can't, can he attack someone on the King of the Hill spot? Okay, no. Can he attack anyone? You know, that's came more handy for like the rangers and the mages and stuff like that. But so first priority is run on to this spot. Second priority is attack someone on this spot. Third priority is to attack, period. Then you would go into move as your 4th priority. So, but again, that wasn't hard. And this whole system allows you to do that. You've got everything you need here to play these other types of games. The third and final thing that I was just kind of playing around with and haven't played a final game with yet, though, was setting up something like this. Now, this would be a true King of the Hill scenario, but, you know, I was just having fun with saying, okay, what if I just kind of stacked all these up here and put a single flag, like up here in this little village here. And then I said, okay, the enemy AI is going to start here, 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 and here, and I have to start way back here in this field and say, let's put this guy right here. So the same movement rules apply: 2 through water, 2 to get up, but essentially you're just trying to push your way up here. In this instance, I probably would use something like a time tracker to figure out, but you essentially just have to kind of keep pushing up, figuring out the best tactics. And if you knock them out, they would just go back to these start spaces. Maybe they wouldn't respawn until the beginning of their next round or something like that, just to give you a little bit of time, since you are doing the advancing and they're just kind of holding the hill. But yeah, again, there's a lot of potential in this game. There's a lot of things you can do with this game that are outside of the standard set of rules. And I really appreciated that. I have spent just as much time fooling around and kind of creating my own games in this little world than just as much time as I have playing the actual solo game. And I've enjoyed it. I have enjoyed my time. And, as with all Tiny Epic games, the lack of shelf space that they take up is a super bonus. And so this isn't, going to be taking over my top spot of Tiny Epic Games for any chance. If you are looking for something to play with your friends that is going to be very light and has that tactical feel to it, if you are a big fan of Final Fantasy Tactics, and really having to strategically move your people around, things like that, and not just rush in, roll a bunch of dice, and attack people, then this is probably going to be a great game for you. If you enjoy experimenting a little bit and going off the beaten path, and you want an environment that you can do with that in, this is definitely a game for you. If you are looking for this purely for solo and you're not the type of person to shy away from the standard rules of the rule book, I don't know if this game is for you. It just doesn't quite seem to be there for just a pure solo out of the box aspect. You got to put a little bit extra into it to get what you want out of it. So that's just, again, this is just my opinion. Take it or leave it. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.